Let's begin with the foundations. Welcome to another lecture. Today we will examine the Backrooms, a contemporary piece of internet folklore that, as it were, turned a single yellow room into an entire cosmology. I am Professor Alexei. We will proceed methodically, with a minimum of melodrama and a maximum of documentation.
Hello everyone, I'm Priyanka. I'm excited and, slightly uneasy, which probably means this is good horror and good research material at the same time.
To frame our discussion, the Backrooms are a fictional extra-dimensional maze of bland fluorescent rooms with jaundiced walls and stained carpets. A space that looks safe yet feels contaminated. The operative aesthetic is liminality. Halls, offices, showrooms, places designed for people that have been emptied of people, yielding the uncanny impression that meaning has been subtracted but the lighting bill remains. Entry is often phrased as no clipping out of reality. We borrow no clip from video games where one passes through walls as if physics took a coffee break. In this context, the story world thrives in collaborative online horror. Wikis, Discord, subreddits, plus visual grammars such as found footage and analog horror that simulate discovery with hum, tape grain, and the vertigo of handheld perspective.
Maybe the best place to begin is by asking a simple question. When we say liminal, do we just mean empty spaces? Or is there something more precise going on here?
It's crucial to understand that liminality, properly, is about thresholds, corridors, waiting rooms, transitions. Emptiness is a surface feature. The deeper mechanism is cognitive dissonance. We recognize the architecture and its supposed function, yet the function is withdrawn, so our minds supply threat in the vacuum. Kotaku and Internet Studies scholar Tama Lever both emphasize that the fear arises from the implied and unseen. The lights buzz, the carpet stains, but the monster is, at least initially, our own projection. Mathematically, the environment is an almost place. It approximates purpose and then leaves the last epsilon to your anxiety. Why does this matter? First, the Backrooms have become a major node in internet culture, amplifying the liminal space aesthetic across platforms. The empirical signal, nearly 100 million TikTok views on liminal spaces, is not a trivial indicator. Second, the absence of a single canon produces a living laboratory for collaborative storytelling. ABC News noted that this makes it hard to distinguish straight-faced lore from jokes. But arguably, that ambiguity is the feature, not the bug. It keeps the world porous, remixable, and alive.
And I think the stakes are also methodological. If a story can be authored by many and still cohere enough to feel real, then our usual models of authorship, verification, and even fandom governance have to adapt. It makes me wonder how we teach media literacy for worlds with no single owner.
Let's start with the history. The now iconic image, yellow walls, fluorescent glare, a Dutch angle that quietly destabilizes the frame, was not staged for horror. It was taken in June 2002 during renovations at 807 Oregon Street in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, a former Roner's home furnishings being converted into a hobby town. The photo was later uploaded in March 2003 as DSC00161.jpg, labeled an original view of the East, or Oval, room, with no windows and extensive water damage. Years later, between 2011 and 2018, the picture circulated without context on message boards, accruing a reputation for wrongness. In May 2019, an anonymous user on 4chan's paranormal board posted that image in a thread soliciting disquieting pictures. Another anonymous reply coined the phrase "the Backrooms" and furnished the seed description. Days later, subreddits began elaborating levels and entities, and by March 2022, An indie game by Pie on a Plate Productions translated the mood into a brief first-person exploration. By March 2022, our Backrooms surpassed roughly 157,000 members, signaling mainstreaming. In January 2022, Kane Parsons, known as Kane Pixels, uploaded the Backrooms found footage, a VHS-styled short assembled in roughly a month using Blender and After Effects. It passed about 78 million views and grew into a series exceeding 197 million views.
And the origin of the photo itself was only nailed down in 2024, right? A Backrooms Discord traced it via the Wayback Machine to that 2003 page. And then a tweet made it broadly visible. I love that the archive becomes part of the folklore.
Indeed, the sleuthing connected the mythic image to a mundane Midwestern address. And, in an epilogue worthy of an architecture seminar, the room's layout was later erased when the area became the Revolution Racing radio-controlled car track. Meanwhile, Parsons' series introduced Async, a fictional 1980s research organization exploring a portal to the Backrooms. He received a Creator Honors Award at the 2022 Streamies from the Game Theorists. In February 2023, A24 announced a feature adaptation with Parsons directing, Roberto Patino writing, and producers including James Wan, Michael Clear, Sean Levy, Dan Cohen, and Dan Levine. It released in the United States in May 2026. Along the way, the concept touched television, an American Horror Stories episode featuring Michael Imperioli, and influenced creators such as Dan Erickson of Severance, who cited the Backrooms among his inspirations. Before we get to the complexities, a personal note. I am drawn to the Backrooms because they model how folklore now evolves in public. We observe ideas proposed on forums, codified on wikis, visualized on YouTube and TikTok, and even revised by archivists using the Wayback Machine. As in mathematics, where a conjecture becomes a theorem through communal scrutiny, here a stray image became a world because many minds iterated on a shared problem. What makes a place feel wrong?
Building on that, could we maybe set up the 3 big questions we want to answer today so we can keep our bearings while we wander this maze?
Of course. 3 inquiries will focus us. First, the historical question. How did the Backrooms originate? And what evidence maps their evolution from an orphaned photo to a transmedia project? Second, a counterfactual. What if Parsons' 2022 short had not gone viral? How would the trajectory differ? Third, an open systems question. What is the future of collaborative horror without a single canon? Big question 1. Origins. The 2002 photograph, shot at a Dutch angle, whether incidental or aesthetic, accidentally encoded unease. Its lack of windows, the fluorescent hum implied by the fixtures, the corporate beige gone fungal in Phoenix Sims phrasing, all were raw inputs. Between 2011 and 2018, the image circulated stripped of provenance, which primed it for narrative adoption. In May 2019, anonymity did its folkloric work. An unnamed poster offered a name and a premise. Within days, communities layered on levels and entities. Wikis such as Fandom and Wikidot standardized entries in a pseudo-archival voice. Incident logs, dossiers, containment notes, obviously fictional yet organizationally serious. Discord servers arbitrated tone in real time, and counter-communities emerged, like our true Backrooms, defending minimal, implication-heavy horror against maximalist systems with survival rules and monsters.
I'm curious about the anonymity part. If nobody can claim authorship of the first description, Does that make the story stronger because it feels like common property? Or weaker because there's no single vision?
In this context, anonymity is catalytic. It lowers barriers to participation and diffuses authority, enabling what ABC News called an emerging genre of collaborative online horror, where jokes and earnest lore coexist. The result is not unstable so much as plural. PC Gamer compared the spatial logic to Lovecraft's R'lyeh or Nihei's Blame. But crucially, there is no Lovecraft here to adjudicate. We observe instead a folk system. Good editions propagate quickly across platforms, poor ones wither. The 2024 provenance discovery for the photo is instructive. It did not kill the myth, but rather added a footnote, a provenance paragraph, to a living document. There is one dispute worth noting. Some argue the Backrooms originated the liminal space aesthetic online. Others insist the aesthetic predated 2019, and the Backrooms merely furnished its most potent narrative frame. The empirical signal, nearly 100 million TikTok views on liminal spaces, suggests the Backrooms functioned as an accelerant, even if not the initial spark. Big question 2, the counterfactual. Suppose Parsons' January 2022 short had flopped rather than detonated. We can infer several consequences. Without that found footage catalyst, restrained analog textures, a diegetic camera, and the patient hum of fluorescence, the concept might have remained a forum-bound meme with intermittent images. Perhaps a scattering of indie games, but lacking a unifying audiovisual grammar. The async scaffolding, which offered a quasi-scientific frame while preserving mystery, helped episodic coherence. Without it, studios like A24 might have been less inclined to invest, and the 2026 feature would have been unlikely or at least delayed.
So yeah, moving on to why it did not flop. What factors, specifically, made that short succeed when a lot of internet horror does not? Was it just luck? Or something we can actually point to?
Good question. Several variables align. Format. Found footage compresses exposition. The premise is encoded in the lens, so the world building rides along as implication rather than lore dump. Aesthetic. Analog horror, with VHS degradation and authentic hum, created verisimilitude. Viewers scrutinized empty corners as if conducting an experiment. Craft, restraint, little gore, much suggestion, kept the viewer in a problem-solving mode. Timing. Early 2022 saw the Backrooms fandom expanding on TikTok and YouTube. Short-form virality was primed, including Google Earth zoom-ins that pretended to locate entrances. Persona. The author was 16. That novelty traveled with the link. Community amplification. The game theorist's streamy recognition signaled institutional attention. Infrastructure. For Backrooms had already reached scale by March 2022, providing a distribution substrate. In simpler terms, the video fit the corridor the internet had already built. We should add that games and adjacent media provided parallel proof. Co-op survival titles such as Escape the Backrooms operationalized levels and entities into challenges, while the Backrooms 1998 prioritized found footage visuals and limited saves. These divergent designs demonstrated elasticity. Meanwhile, mainstream references, from an American Horror Stories episode to a Backrooms-inspired Juice WRLD video, showed that the vocabulary of yellow rooms and endless halls had become instantly readable shorthand.
I think the next thing we should talk about is the future. If there is no single canon, what does success look like 5 years from now? Is it better to set a definitive narrative or keep letting many continuities bloom?
This logically leads us to big question 3. The case for a definitive narrative is industrial. Clear IP boundaries and consistent tone facilitate adaptations. The case against is artistic and communal. Ambiguity sustains participation, keeps mystery alive, and enables plural horror appetites. We already see a healthy bifurcation. Communities like our true Backrooms emphasize quiet architectural dread. Others lean into entities, rules, and survival logic. Games such as Dreamcore, released in 2025, reflect adjacent aesthetics, demonstrating spillover into broader psychological exploration rather than strict adaptation. The A24 film in 2026 proves that a studio feature can coexist with a decentralized myth. It does not have to extinguish it.
From a different angle, could new media formats push this even further? Like, I guess, AR or VR? Or cross-platform experiences that use wikis, Discord, and short video together in real time?
To elaborate, VR can literalize no-clip by collapsing spatial expectations. AR can transform ordinary corridors into laboratories of doubt. Cross-platform events can synchronize pseudo-archival drops on wikis with live clips and Discord findings, effectively staging a rolling investigation. The research frontier, however, is methodological. We need better instruments to trace narrative provenance across platforms and to study how archival revelations, such as the 2024 Wayback Machine discovery, reshape audience belief without puncturing wonder. Speaking of tools, the SCP Foundation provides a long-standing comparative model for collaborative pseudo-archival horror. Its successes and failure modes are instructive for governance and tone calibration. As we continue, a brief note on critical reception. Commentators praised restraint and the uncanny valley of place. PC Gamer invoked inhuman architectures like Relier and the city from blame, which is to say, spaces that outscale human purpose. Paste's Phoenix Sims mapped the palette to caution and decay, while Kotaku and Tama Lever emphasized that unseen threat is the accelerant. All of this converges on a principle. When the environment is the antagonist, the audience becomes a collaborator.
Maybe it's just me, but that feels like why the backrooms stick. We finish the equation, so we remember doing it. The fear is partly ours. So, I guess that kind of sums it up.
To summarize, the Backrooms began as an anonymous description attached to an orphaned renovation snapshot and evolved through collaborative labor into a liminal space horror vocabulary that now spans wikis, games, shorts, television, music videos, and a 2026 feature. We examined three questions: the documented origins and the productive role of anonymity, a counterfactual in which Parsons' short did not ignite, and how that would have altered diffusion, and the future of collaborative horror in a world with many canons rather than one. For further study, the SCP Foundation offers a rigorous comparative case. Consider its policies, its tonal drift, and its mechanisms for managing plurality.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you to everyone listening. Maybe don't stare too long at the office hallway on your way out today.
This then completes our present analysis. Keep your bearings, and if you must no-clip, do take notes. Until next time on another lecture.